Hey, you guys. I have my friend, Brian Galke, here today.
Our faces are changing all the time. There's 43 muscles in the face. Mind creates movement. Movement creates muscle.
There are like little tips, tricks, hacks inside of just everyday stuff.
That's why I named the company Subtle Skills, because as soon as you tell people what you're doing, then they're all of a sudden like, oh, I want people to know anybody can learn this. And so what we're going to talk about today, go out and practice it, and it'll change your life. What's my angle? Straight eyebrows, angled eyebrows, and rounded is. And this is the skill that took me from being an introvert on the help desk to a regional vice president of sales with a $40 million book of business.
It's like you have the signals. Oh man, there's a soundbite. There's a soundbite right there. What do you want to go into? I know you've got like pictures for us and stuff. So guys, if you're listening on the podcast and you're wondering what these pictures say or whatever, just go check it out on YouTube. We have it there as well, so you can actually see what's going on, but I'm sure we're going to be describing it as well.
Yeah, we'll go through it and we'll do our best to describe it at the same time. So let me want to make sure I'm opening the right one here. All right, share.
Boom.
All right, so you can see the faces here.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. So there's 43 muscles in the face. The mind creates movement. Movement creates muscle. So this is kind of how, when you asked earlier, you looked kind of shocked when I said as a kid, I used to have straight eyebrows.
Yeah.
And that's because it's true. So I show pictures of me all the time when I was a kid. And this was me. Yeah. So for people who are listening, here's the crazy part. Our ear sizes don't get larger or smaller. Now, however, the way we're built, all babies when we're born have large eyes. Even blind babies have large eyes because that's our first way to take in the world. But then, depending on what modality we are drawn towards, we can have larger, smaller ears. Our eyes go down to a different size. But our faces are constantly adjusting. So in the picture here, the picture of me at 18, my ears used to stick out quite a bit. As a matter of fact, my nickname in high school was Ears. But as I became a corporate employee for 21 and a half years, my ears went closer to my skull here. And so ears are like, if the best example is like Ross Perot or someone whose ears stick out, they push back. Because if you think of like airplanes and wind drag, the farther your ears stick out, the less you go with the flow. The more you go with the flow, the closer your ears get to your head. And so in the picture here, you see me as a kid and my ears are out. And now they're closer to my head. Now, what I also have now, it's kind of harder to see, but I have what's called a heart line. That are these lines right here that are kind of like backslashes in my earlobe.
Oh,
so if you see that, if you see that and you can see it right here in the picture, that you can go to any doctor or nurse and they're going to go, oh, that's a heart line. That's one of the biofeedback things that our body does is it alters our face over time. Like if you see somebody with sunken in cheeks, what do you immediately think? Uh-oh, they're sick. And cheeks actually represent like energy levels. So when you see somebody who has high and wide cheeks, they've got a ton of energy and can keep going and going. Someone who's sick, their cheeks sunk in. But so our faces are feedback machines of what's going on in our body also, and our mind. The next thing, see, here's my straight eyebrow when I was a kid.
Real quick?
Yeah.
What about Ozempic face?
So it's changing things. That's what's really interesting, right? Is people who are eating once a day. Now, you could go back 10 years ago, and it was the HCG diet, you name it. When people lose too much too fast, the body goes into conservation mode and thinks, oh, crap, they're sick. And that's part of the reason that it looks like that.
Oh, man, that's wild. Okay.
Yeah. So you can see here on my eyebrow used to be straight. See how it's more angled? And you can see they're both angled now. Now, here's the one that's harder to see until I point it out. As a kid, my eyes used to angle down quite a bit. And that's because when your eyes angle down, you're worried about the downside of things. I was raised in a household that they said, hey, it may work out, but what if it doesn't? What's your backup plan? Okay. And so I was always focused on having my backup plans instead of running full speed ahead at things. Now, as I became more successful personally and professionally, my eyes slowly adjusted to the angle of them over time. So our faces are constantly adjusting. That's why if I go to look somebody up, I start on LinkedIn, but I don't know how old the LinkedIn picture is. So I'm getting ahead of myself. What really changed this for me was I was always growing up reading body language books. I already showed you statement analysis books, how to win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
But all that was reactive. I had to be in the room with them to know what's going on. This was the first proactive skill that I ever saw, because what you could do is you could go and look up people ahead of time on LinkedIn, social media, you name it. And so I could go and look them up and be like, okay, I'll find a picture of them on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn could be 5 years old, or if they're a realtor, their picture on their sign's like 30 years old. But I want to see something more recent. So I'll go find a picture of them on LinkedIn, but then I move to social media. And then I can try and figure out ahead of time, what does a person's face say about them? And then how do I change my presentation for the person instead of just pitching people over and over again? So this is a guy, Sam Taggart. I spoke at Door to Door Con earlier this year. This is every single one of these features. And for the people who are just listening, it says brow ridge, low eyebrows, little to no eyelid. He's got what's known as chameleon eyebrows, which is we can't see the shape of them. He's got a fuller upper lip. Well, when we say the phrase, keep a stiff upper lip, the flatter someone's lip is, the less you should ask them personal questions. Now, it's confusing to people because there's a lot of speakers who have a thinner upper lip, but that's them choosing to share versus you asking them questions. So Janine Driver, love her to death. She will get up on stage and share some of the most intimate stories in her life. When she's off stage, if you ask her a personal question, she'll say, why do you need to know that? So when we say keep a stiff upper lip, we're telling someone be stoic, don't kind of keep your emotions to yourself. Well, that's part of where that phrase comes from. We talk about faces nonstop all the time. And what I really love about it, well, here's Sam. He put me in his book because I taught all the door-to-door salespeople these skills. And you asked earlier, where can it be used? Everywhere. In your personal life, in your professional life, you name it. But what I really love is face reading is creating connection right here. Like you can't see my setup at home, but I have the monitor behind the camera so that I'm looking at you making eye contact, because this is the problem most people do when they're giving a presentation. Okay, my presentation's down here, that's great. Here's everybody's face on Zoom, but they're not getting eye contact. So I actually bought a monitor to put behind my camera, inspired by Brian Bogert, so that when I'm doing this, I'm looking at the camera and creating that eye connection, because this device connects me to the world, but disconnects us from each other. And that's kind of how body language is. Body language is important, but if I spent the whole conversation looking down like this, you'd be like, hey, I'm up here.
Yeah.
So that's what I really loved about it, was it kept me in the present moment and I could do it proactively. So I felt like I was walking in. Actually, you were there. I'm going to tell you a funny story. I felt like I was walking in to meet old friends instead of new people. So you were in San Diego at my first ever speakeasy. And so remember I met you at the Mexican restaurant the night before.
Yes.
I actually sat with you and Mike before. Now it's funny. I didn't even think about it till we were just talking, but you guys are the ones I sat with.
Yeah.
And that's where I met Stella and some of the other people. Yeah. Well, Steve's events are nobody knows who the speaker is or anything. But I had Steve add me to the Facebook group. And then as people were like, hey, I'm so excited to be there, I would grab a picture of their face and draw all the arrows. Be like, okay, Mohawk Matt looks like this, and this person looks like that. So other than the other speakers, I knew who was going to be there. So it was like running into an old friend instead of a brand new cold room. So as a matter of fact, I recognized Mohawk Matt for obvious reasons, and Mindy. So I walked up and I started talking to him. He's like, oh, is this your second or third time at the speakeasy? I'm like, no, it's my first. And it's because I felt like I knew them to a degree. I didn't, go digging through their trash. I didn't look up their history or anything, but just how do I speak to them? And it made me feel comfortable around them versus the introvert in me. And that's just a perfect example. Now, a funny follow-up to that story is before Steve was calling me up to speak, I popped open my laptop again. I'm looking at all these pictures with arrows at people's faces. And when I got done, somebody goes, thank goodness that's what you were teaching, because I thought you were a psycho killer with all these arrows aimed at our faces. I'm like, nope. But
profiling the room.
Exactly. I know if your audience is anything like me, they're like, okay, get to it. I want to kind of understand how to use this. So I like to start with eyebrows. Why eyebrows? Because you can see them from across the room, and eyebrows lead to eye contact. So that's the big part about it. So I apologize for the first slide, but I make up for it in the second one. So the first one is, if you don't think eyebrows are important, go and Google people without eyebrows.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So for the people listening, it's celebrities that we took away one feature, and that is their eyebrows, and they look kind of creepy.
Yeah.
without that one feature. Like you don't know how to talk to them. Now, if you want to go the opposite, people go, well, I have my eyebrows professionally done. Okay, well, so the second one I've got here is when people draw eyebrows on babies and how it changes the appearance. So if you look, like this kid here looks like an evil genius. This one over here, see how it's got a straight eyebrow and an angled eyebrow? We'll explain
Yeah.
that a little bit later too. But just by changing the shape of eyebrows impacts us a little bit about what we think. And people go, I don't really pay that much attention to eyebrows. Well, if I go to a picture and I take away that one feature, you don't know how to talk to one side of the face versus the other. Now, an interesting fact, I'm a total book nerd. So if you ever read the book called The Like Switch, this is
Okay.
by a former FBI agent who taught agents how to recruit people to spy against their own countries. And they said the first thing instinctively as a creature, when someone new walks in the room, we immediately look at their eyebrows. And we look to see, do they raise them in recognition? And, hey, how's it going? Or do they squint down as a foe? So that's the instinctively to stay alive. That's the first thing that we did. And that's why we pay so much more attention to eyebrows than we think we do. So eyebrows start off as filters to keep us, dirt out, water out, you name it, but they've adjusted with us over time. And so if you take very young girls who don't feel in control of their own life, one of two things happens. One, they get a tattoo to show ownership of their own body, or they'll tend to shave off their eyebrows and put angled eyebrows on. And that'll make more sense here in a second. I know it's
Oh,
crazy, right?
wow.
Mentioned earlier, we talk about faces all the time. So we talk about highbrow humor and lowbrow humor.
Yeah.
Highbrow humor is when somebody tells you a joke and you have to think about it and then you laugh. Lowbrow humor is physical comedy. Three Stooges, Jackass, you name it. So
Yeah.
just like the eyebrows we're talking about, you and I need to think about it. Mike immediately makes decisions. So when you start looking at people, you can say, okay, high eyebrows, proceed with caution, give them time. So it's like a speed bump in the middle of the road. So the
Yeah.
higher the eyebrow, the more time they need to make a decision. Now that has nothing to do with intelligence. That's a big misconception. People go, oh, so somebody's stupid if they have high eyebrows? I said, no, making a rash decision can be just as bad as taking your time to make a decision. So it's not intelligence, it's comfort level when making decisions. So when you see somebody who has higher eyebrows, just know they're going to need more time to either have the conversation or more time before they make a decision. So when I
Yeah.
used to sell technology to jails and prisons, I would look for the person who had the highest eyebrow and start talking to them first. And then I'd work my way to the low eyebrow. Or like we talked earlier, if I'm on somebody's calendar, I'd look them up proactively and go, cool, I got 30 minutes. Do I need to fill the 30 minutes or do I need to fill 5 minutes and let them ask questions? And eyebrow height determined that. So, like we are talking about the Mike conversation earlier,
Yeah.
Mike would look more like this, where eyebrows are very close to the eyes.
Yeah.
Well, that's like putting a speed bump at the end of the road. So, data races down their forehead to get into their eye, and it only has to slow down at the last minute. So I
Oh,
know somebody whose eyebrows are lower make fast decisions. Doesn't matter if it's dinner, if it's buying something, they're going to get to their, they want to make that decision fast. So
yeah.
that have the information prepared for them instead of having to give a presentation. So
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, I called the company Subtle Skills because I was never telling anybody what I was doing. But I had presentations set up. But if I walked in and the entire room had a bunch of low eyebrows that were straight, I thought, oh crap, these 80 slides aren't going to work. So then we'd stop and go, hey, you know what? You guys have been through this RFP process before. You've seen a lot of presentations. What's the most important part to you today that you need to see? And sometimes we'd jump right into the product presentation and not the pitch. But if they had high eyebrows, give them the whole dog and pony show.
Oh man, I
Yeah.
love the Dog and Pony Show.
Yeah.
I sometimes go back. I buy stuff on a sales page one. Like this is what I do. I'm sorry to
Uh,
interrupt, but I'm
no, I
bad
love this.
at just interrupt with things, right? But
Yeah.
um I love to buy things, right?
Mhm.
And so I go through a sales page and then I'll buy the thing and
Yes.
then I'll go back to the sales page to like tell myself how amazing I am that I just got that thing and like I get all
Uh-huh.
excited about it again. It's wild. So I love the Dog and Pony Show times maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah. Oh, when I go to buy things like, uh, I think I went, did all my research and everything before, and then I test drove the car, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need the car right now. But when it was the right time, it was the right time. Versus, I know people that when they go to the store, I'm in for these 3 items, I'm out the door. I just tend to take my time on things. I really want to understand things. I want to think through the process. If somebody forces me to make a rash decision or a rushed decision, I have buyer's remorse. They'll never get a referral from me. I'll feel like I was pushed into it, versus taking my time. Now, that's not for everything, but that's just a majority of my comfort zone. And I tend to have anything higher than a finger is considered a high eyebrow. Anything
Okay.
below it is considered a low. Now, if you're
Okay.
looking at someone's face and you're like, I can't tell, that's just called a non-read, and you skip it and move on to the next feature.
Yeah.
So it makes sense with the high and versus low.
Yes. That's
Okay.
amazing.
So I love to show people like, oh, eyebrows aren't that important. I'm like, okay, then why does Legos only have 3 versions of eyebrows? Now I can talk about
Mm.
eyebrows all day long, but for the people who are listening, Lego has straight eyebrows, angled eyebrows, and rounded eyebrows. Well, we all played the game as a kid, put the right peg in the right hole. It's the same thing. People through their face are telling us how to talk to them.
That's amazing.
And with makeup and plastic surgery, people are choosing more and more every day to tell you what to pay attention to at the time. So when
Yeah.
we start digging into it, when you see straight eyebrows, this is like Mike: facts,
Yeah.
figures, data, straight to the point. So
Yeah.
these are people who love the numbers, the details behind things.
Yep.
Now, movies and television also show us this about people. So, what is Spock known for? Logic. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so television also tells us through cartoons, through CGI, through special effects, you name it, they're constantly telling us all that information. Pardon me for 1 second. Yes, sir.
Yep.
About 10 minutes, okay? All right. I have my 7-year-old here with me today.
I love
Um,
that.
so you look at Spock and it's facts, figures, data, right? He's logic.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, in the old Spock, people are like, oh no, he's got an angled eyebrow. No, if you dig in close, Leonard Nimoy has a straight eyebrow. It's just up here. But what makes an angled eyebrow is that 45-degree curve that he doesn't have. So what they did is, in this version of Spock, they just took that angle and made it this way. But it's
Yeah.
still a straight eyebrow on either one of them.
Yep. I see it. I see
So
it.
straight eyebrows, straight to the point. Angled eyebrows, and this is what you and I were talking about, help me understand what's my angle, and then I can figure out how to help other people, my customers, my coworkers, my family. But I have to understand it first.
Yeah.
That's my angle. And
Yep.
then I can move on and help others. Now, angled eyebrows are also authoritarian and they want to be involved in the process. So don't just tell me what you're going to do, involve me in it to a degree.
Yep.
Because again, I need to understand what's my angle. How can I help out? How can I move things along? You name it. I'm working with a vendor right now that I keep sending them emails like, hey, I can do some of this stuff. Where are we at? And they're not responding. And it's frustrating me because I want to be, look, if you don't have time to do it, involve me. And, what's my angle? Where can I help? So
Yeah.
it's funny. It's when you learn, the first thing you do when you learn to understand facial features is you go and stand in front of a mirror and go, what do I have? And then you start figuring out, okay, now that I know who I am,
Yeah.
how do I interact with others differently?
Yes. That's
Um,
amazing.
so then angled eyebrows here, Ruth Ginsburg, what did she do? She knew she wanted to help women, but she had to go to law school first. So she had to understand the law, how to make it work. Then she started implementing things. And I already
Mm.
showed you a picture of me. So when you look at the last one we talked about, rounded eyebrows. So if you think rounded eyebrows, think about the people around them first and themselves second. So if I tell you why you're going to benefit and then take it to your coworkers, they're like, huh? I don't get it. Because they just want to go, tell me how everyone else benefits first and me second. And again,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different style of thinking than you and I have.
Yeah.
Because they want to know, how can I help someone else immediately?
Yep.
So when you start looking at people, now these are 2 very controversial people. Put this on your social media if you want to get a lot of hate, but hear me out. um, Oprah's show was called Oprah, but did we watch it for her or did we watch it for who she was going to interview and what she was going to do for her audience?
Oh,
That's what I like about her. Then you look at Elon Musk, is people, what's important to people is where they pay. And so he made enough money. I think it was like 75 million after he sold PayPal. He could have retired.
yeah.
But instead he put it all into Tesla. And does Tesla just help him or does it help other people? So he wanted a larger car that was electric, then the money into SpaceX. Getting people to the moon doesn't help him personally. It
Yep.
helps other people at the exact same time. So if you look at, and a fun way to do this is look at cartoon versions of someone's portrait, and you'll see all the ones of Elon. It's, even though they're a little bit small, they're all rounded features. And so when you start looking at people, you just think, do I need to get straight to the point? I need to know what's their angle to talk to them about it, or do I need to make it about the people around them? So as I promised you earlier, if I'm going in and I want an upgrade for a hotel, or if I'm trying to get on an airline, if it's a straight eyebrow, I ask them directly, I'd like an upgrade. Is one available? If it's an angled eyebrow, talk about what's their angle, give them the power to help you with something. So, for example, I mentioned hotels. Hey, I'm a diamond member with Hilton. I'm excited to be here. It'd be amazing if you could help me get an upgrade.
Yeah.
What did I do? I mentioned I'm a diamond member. I mentioned how I'm asking for them to help me get something. But if it's a rounded one, then I'll walk in and go, oh, such a long flight or such a long drive. I'd love a room to, just kind of walk around and just kind of stretch out a little bit. Is an upgrade available? So I'm asking for an upgrade, but I'm asking based on who's at the desk
Yeah.
is how I'm going to tweak it a little bit, because I'm
Nice.
making it about them, even though it's my want.
Exactly. I'm sorry, my dog won't shut up. I
Oh, it's
can't.
fine.
I
Totally
can't
fine. Hey, I
even.
just talked to my daughter. Not that I'm saying they're equals, but life
Right.
is that. This is where life is this day and age.
This is where I'm like, Mike and Nora literally just left the house a minute ago, or else he'd be fine. I'm like, here's my dog. Now is going
Yeah.
to just be doing this.
Oh, it's
This
fine.
is amazing.
Yeah.
This for people that are listening to this, like as you're listening to this right now, I'm sure that you're already, because this is what we do. We
Mhm.
imagine like sort of case studies in our own minds, right? Of like,
Yes.
okay, when I get home, yes, I'm gonna look at myself in the mirror.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm gonna look at my husband. Yes, I'm gonna look at my kid and be able to, kind of put all of this together. But I know that you also have some other things that people are able to hop into where like if they really want to know this stuff well and to know all of it, because we just
Hmm.
talked eyebrows
We just
today.
talked
There's
eyebrows. Yeah,
more,
and
right?
like two features of eyebrows. There's so much more, but that's
Yeah.
something that people can see from across the room and start
Uh-huh.
practicing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So like how we're going to be putting links in, but do
Mhm.
you want to kind of describe maybe the intro version of what you've
Sure.
got?
Yeah. So what I realized is when I learned this, my mentor loved the guy to death, but he was an attorney, like I mentioned. And
Yeah.
so the book that I learned from was Too Much Too Fast. And so I
Mm,
took the material with his permission and created a basics, an intermediate, and an advanced. Because if you have an entire book, it's like getting a set of encyclopedias and going, okay, go to work. And so
yeah.
what I created was courses and coaching based on learn the basics first,
Yeah.
then move up and level up over time. So I've got virtual training, coaching, and then consulting. So Atiba. Atiba and
Hmm.
I were actually on a podcast, and he was telling me, he said, I've got this big client that I'm gonna meet with later. And I said, you got a picture of him? And so we went and looked up that person, and I said, okay, all right, now tell me what your pitch is. And he gave me his pitch. I'm like, no, that won't work. Go change this, go change this, go change this. And he called me back an hour after the presentation. He said, I just landed that client, a 6-figure client, and they never even asked me the price because the person knew and Atiba changed what he wanted to say and the best way to represent his product, but for the person. So there's do it yourself is the courses and the coaching, or do it DIY, right? Is the video courses or the flashcards. Do it with you is where basically the coaching program and done for you is consulting. If you have a big pitch that's coming up and you want to know how do I need to adjust it for the people in the room, then you just reach out and we work together over your presentation, your materials, what do you have, and we go from there. And of course, I love speaking because when you're in the rooms, this, that's where you get to meet people and you can help change lives is when you can get in front of people. So that's my favorite thing to do.
Oh my gosh. You know, I I don't even remember how long we've been friends at this point, but
2021.
it's isn't that wild?
Yeah,
It it's been a road, hasn't it?
it has.
Um I'm so excited that people get to hear about you today and what you do, and also about like the programs that you have, because this is life-changing stuff for people, and especially I would say like what you talked about a little bit earlier, but for like introverts and such that really kind of believe that they don't belong in these different fields
Hmm.
because they're awkward-ish. And I get that. I'm an introvert, you're an introvert. Like we
Yep.
we get that. I remember I used to go to business networking stuff and just panic going in because I'm like, I can't do surface stuff. Like I can't.
Yes.
And
Right.
and but whenever you know these different things, it's like you have a he's just going to keep barking.
Totally
Um
fine. I already started
oh,
ignoring it.
He won't shut up. He's a Pomeranian for those that are listening and you're like, what the heck noise is that? It's a Pomeranian making himself known right now.
Yes.
Um, and but whenever you're equipped with this stuff, it's almost like you have, special weaponry to even just walk into a place and kind of know ahead of time, what they're looking for, so you can more accommodate for people. And it goes back to that whole rather than being interesting, be interested. And
Yes.
it allows you to do that in a really good way, right?
Yeah, it's another tool for your tool belt. It's not the tool, but it's the tool that helped me the most. I mention all the time, if people go to decode the face, or an easier one that people can remember is getthecheatsheet.com, will take you to the cheat sheet of some of the things that we just covered. But I list every body language book that's mattered to me. It's not that there is one special thing. It's about learning to be a better person in any way you can. And a lot of being a better person is working on yourself, but then working on how to build rapport with others. And there's so many resources out there, but people don't know it because people are taught. And look, I was in corporate America for 21 and a half years and I hated a majority of it. You're taught to be a better employee, not a better person. If you really want to get ahead in life, become a better person, and every area of your life improves. Getting better at a product helps you in one small sliver of who you are as a person.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Brian, for coming on. Brian Galke,
Yes.
for 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 coming on. If you want links to his stuff, it's in show notes. It's in
Sure.
the captions, all of the different things. I appreciate you. This has been fantastic. And also for the video, we've got a QR code here for you if you're watching the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
But you guys, thanks for coming to another episode of the Home Based Revolution. Look forward to hearing from you guys on the comments of this, but then also seeing you again next time. And again, thank you so much, Brian.
Yes. Thank you. And welcome to Texas.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.